Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining me. Hey, I do want to tell you guys, we're going to take a 2-week hiatus starting on Friday. We're going to take our summer break starting on Friday, and we won't be back, I don't think, until July the 20th or July the 17th. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's July the 20th. But so enjoy this week of shows, and then we will air some separates, not full shows. We will air some content during the break, but the live show will not be here. So I just wanted to prepare you for that. So with that little boring start, I have a fantastic, we're going to land the plane this week in an amazing fashion. Today's show that we've cooked up, I think is going to be even better than yesterday's show, and I thought yesterday's show was tremendous, our conversation about Kobe Bryant. We will continue that a bit with Jay Skapinac here in about 30, 45 minutes. Jay Skapinac will join us. We'll talk about Kobe Bryant and is his greatness being exaggerated in death. Skap is a huge Kobe fan. We'll also, at the very end of the show, talk with Steve Kim, the Jalen Ramsey trade and what it says about Aaron Rodgers and all of that. There seemed like there was something else that I wanted to talk about with the fall of LeBron James is going to be a part of what we talk about as it relates to Kobe Bryant and as it relates to my fire starter. Paul Shirley is back in studio with me. Can we get Paul on camera here? I keep telling Paul to dress down. He's not doing it.
I accepted no coaching on the wardrobe, but I did accept coaching on the hair.
I don't know if I like the hair pulled back ponytail, that hipster look.
By the way, I wanted to mention, I think the better analogy is that we're going to crash the plane this week, because that's better for the internet, right? If we land the plane, that's routine and boring. We want to crash the plane and survive.
No. I want to land the plane. I have nightmares about being in an airplane crash. I want to land the plane. I want everybody happy and like, wow, look what Whitlock did in his last week before the summer break.
I'm here to attempt to crash the plane.
You're the hijacker.
You then will land because of your skill as a professional pilot.
I will not allow you to hijack this plane. Hey, I got some stuff I'm going to unpack today on Caitlin Clark that's going to involve Kobe Bryant a little bit, but it's also going to involve, wait for it, Morgan Wallen. And this show today will be amazing. And I want to thank the people at Craft Co. and Flying Aces for making this even a possibility. Some bourbons chase trends. Flying Ace chases legacy. This is straight bourbon the way it's meant to be, bold, balanced, and unapologetically American. No gimmicks, no fluff, just real whiskey made for people who still believe in hard work, high standards, and doing things the right way. Whether you're winding down after a long day or raising a glass with good company, Flying Ace delivers every time. It's not about hype, it's about heritage and getting back to what bourbon was always supposed to be. That sounds like you're kind of poor. It's time to level up. Buy online at flyingacespirits.com. That's flyingacespirits.com. Use the promo code BLAZE for free shipping. Thank you, Flying Aces. Paul, you got to sit back. I'm going to unpack a fire starter here. Just relax, pay attention, take notes, and I'll come to you here in a second. But I got a lot to say about Caitlin Clark and what's going on in American sports and what's going on in American culture. So let me start here by patting myself on the back, and I apologize up front for doing it, but I told you all that Caitlin Clark was going to be the biggest thing in American sports. And I started saying this after her junior year at Iowa. This wasn't after she got to the WNBA. This is after her junior year. I was like, oh, man, she's going to be the biggest deal in basketball. And then I started thinking, no, she's going to be the biggest deal in sports. And then I started saying, like, man, she's going to be like Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods. And here we are 2.5, 3 years later, and I don't sound nearly as crazy. I sound so rational that even the New York Times, via The Athletic, published a piece yesterday talking and comparing Caitlin Clark to Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, and Tiger Woods. They quoted a former high-ranking ESPN executive that I used to know very well, named John Kosner, who's been involved. He was involved with the NBA. He was involved with ESPN for a long time. He was one of David Stern's underlings with the NBA, and eventually a high-ranking executive at ESPN under John Skipper. This is his quote. "In my lifetime, we had Muhammad Ali, we had Michael Jordan, we had Tiger Woods, and to me, it's early, but we have Caitlin Clark. People who don't care and don't follow the sport that she plays in have been driven not just to watch, but to watch avidly." So now the New York Times is saying what I've been telling you all for 2 years. Caitlin Clark, biggest deal in sports. The other thing that I told you all is that, and I said this very early on, as soon as she entered the WNBA a year ago, I was like, hey, man, they're going to treat her like she's Jackie Robinson. You remember what Jackie Robinson went through joining Major League Baseball, breaking the color barrier? That's what this is going to be like. Will it be life or death like it was for Jackie Robinson and the legitimate death threats he received? I was like, no. But in terms of everything else, yes, the mistreatment, the disrespect from peers, the hostility directed towards Caitlin Clark is at that Jackie Robinson level. I'm not saying death threats, but I'm saying in every other way. And yesterday, we got a prime example of this, of just how much hatred there is for her within the league. We've seen the hard fouls, we've seen all that, but the players get to vote for the WNBA All-Star game along with fans. The players get to rank, and the voting comes out, the ranking comes out of who gets ranked and such by the players, by the fans, and by the media. Caitlin Clark obviously dominating the fan voting, more than I think 1.3 million votes, some sort of record. But when it comes to the players ranking her, she finished 9th among guards. Her peers ranked her 9th among guards. And I've listened and heard people say, she's missed 5 or 6 games this year. She's not shooting that high of a percentage in her last 4 or 5 games. It's been a struggle. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. But if you're watching the WNBA and you're a player and you know the WNBA even more intimately than those of us that are just watching, but you read the scouting reports that your coach gives you, you watch how Caitlin Clark is defended at a level that I don't think we've seen in basketball maybe since Michael Jordan. And I'm not even sure if Michael Jordan was defended this way. They don't defend Caitlin Clark like she's the 9th best guard in the league. They defend Caitlin Clark like she is the greatest basketball player in the history of the WNBA. They pick her up 3/4 court. As soon as she gets to the top of the key and tries to turn the corner, she is immediately blitzed. The entire defense is set up to stop and disrupt Caitlin Clark. I don't need statistics to tell me Caitlin Clark is the best player in the WNBA. I don't need statistics to tell me she's the most dangerous player in the WNBA. All I have to do is watch how she's defended. Angel Reese, or not Angel Reese, Asia Wilson, the alleged best player in the WNBA, doesn't face the kind of defensive pressure that Caitlin Clark does. Nafisa Collier, who is on her way to winning the MVP, and deservedly so. she doesn't get defended the way Caitlin Clark does. So I get it. Caitlin Clark is averaging nearly 6 turnovers a game. And Caitlin Clark is shooting a lower percentage than she did last year and a lower percentage than anyone expected. But she's facing a defensive pressure unprecedented and is creating opportunities for the rest of her teammates and team that's unbelievable. And so I say all that to say, I've told you where this thing was headed. I've been ahead of the conversation on Caitlin Clark the entire time. And I'm about to tell you the next thing that's even bigger than, hey, she's going to be the biggest star in all of sports. It's bigger than, hey, she's going to be treated like Jackie Robinson. I'm going to tell you about the cultural impact of Caitlin Clark and what it signifies. We made this movie analogy for today, The Woman King, because she has slayed all the men in sports. She is the king of all sports. She's taken no athlete, no male athlete, no woman athlete, no one has ever taken a league and put the entire league on their back. A league that's anchored, a league that for 30 straight years has lost millions of dollars, a league that just, was it 2 years ago in 2023, the top vote getter for the WNBA All-Star game, I believe was Asia Wilson at like 95,000 votes. The top vote getter for the WNBA All-Star game among fans just 2 years ago was Asia Wilson at 95,000 votes. Caitlin Clark's got 1.3 million. Nafesia Collier has 1.1 million, 1.2 million. Caitlin Clark's teammate, Aaliyah Boston, has 1 million votes. Just 2 years ago, the top vote getter got 95,000 votes. Caitlin Clark has made this league relevant and has blessed the entire league, brought all of these women what they said they wanted, attention. We've never seen that. This is bigger than what Tiger Woods did for the PGA Tour. This is bigger than what Michael Jordan did for the NBA. This is bigger than what Magic and Larry did for the NBA. This is unprecedented. The biggest star in American sports is a woman, Caitlin Clark. And some of you are like, man, Whitlock, you're pretty hard on feminists, and the WNBA is a feminist league, and I can't believe how much you talk about the WNBA. Why do you keep talking about this woman? Doesn't it violate all your values? No, it doesn't. And I'm going to explain to you why. Because what Caitlin Clark represents is bigger than feminism. It's actually a reflection of our values. And I'm talking about those of us that have a biblical worldview, those of us that believe in male leadership, those of us that believe in the patriarchy. We have put Caitlin Clark at the top of the food chain. This is bigger than Caitlin Clark. You know, Caitlin Clark is kind of lukewarm as it relates to reflecting all of her biblical values. She kissed the ring and bowed to the feminists, the black queens in the WNBA, because she felt like, hey, I got to relieve some of this stress. She's not a man. She's not built for war. She's not built for this level of conflict. But she's done well. She's held her own. She's held on to those values, and that's what's driving the interest in Caitlin Clark. I'm not quite done yet. I'm about to really go there. But I just want to spell out the importance of Caitlin Clark and spell out the failure of men. Everything that Caitlin Clark is accomplishing, a man could have done. A man could do. A man could steal her thunder, knock her off the throne. But we want to sit around and talk about, hey, Caitlin Clark bent the knee and I'm going to jump off her a little bit. It irritated me. How about all these guys, all these men in sports? They didn't just bend the knee, they bent over. We surrendered the throne. And Caitlin Clark has taken advantage of it. The WNBA has taken advantage of it. But there is, and this is where I'm going really big picture, and I want you all to understand. Paul Shirley will jump in here in a second, but I want you to understand there's a major cultural shift going on right now in America. A major cultural shift. There's a culture fatigue that is driving a culture shift. Hip hop is dead and is dying right before our eyes. That brand, which has dominated American culture for the last 20 years, for the last 30 years, and the branding, the combination of hip hop and sports, it's dying. Caitlin Clark and Morgan Wallen are leading a cultural shift that is piggybacking and taking advantage of a cultural fatigue that everyone is tired of. This isn't a black-white thing. It might be for black women, but for everybody else, we've just had it with our icons, our sports stars, our celebrities, particularly all pretending to be rappers. LeBron James tatting himself up like he's a rapper. Everybody coming to the arena dressed up like they're a rapper. Everybody wanting to be a rapper on the side. Hey, have you listened to my rap album? Yeah, I know I play football or basketball, but I'm also a rapper. Every arena you go into, every gym you go into, I'm talking about little kids going to play AAU basketball or summer basketball or even elementary, junior high, high school basketball. What are they playing in the background? Cleaned up or non-clean versions of that garbage hip-hop music. There's a fatigue. What is driving Caitlin Clark's popularity and her dominance of the sports world is we finally have someone who's girl next door, who shows up at your house, or you take her home to meet your mom or your dad or both, and they're like, oh man, that looks like a nice girl. Oh yeah, you can bring her home. She's not an OnlyFans model. And there's an opportunity for a male athlete to hop into that boy next door role. Maybe Cooper Flagg will do it. I certainly hope so. Maybe Patrick Mahomes will continue to lean in to what he's been leaning into lately, his faith, and detaching himself from all of that Black Lives Matter, social justice warrior garbage, and all this caping up for George Floyd and Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin. People have had it. And living here in Nashville, I can't say that I know Morgan Wallen, but I know of Morgan Wallen and people close to him. And obviously Morgan Wallen likes to drink and he's a party boy and, you know, he's a typical music star. But if you listen to his music, if you go to his concerts, you go to his shows, if you just look at his appearance, he looks like the kind of guy that would show up at your parents' house and your parents would be like, oh, I can deal with this. Listen to his music. It's not profane. It's not degenerate. It's fun. It's rebellious. It's kind of boy next door. It's the kind of music that people of my generation used to listen to. And I've been trying to explain to you all what's happened to me in terms of like, I listen to this country music because I was not a lifelong country music fan. I've been a country music fan for 4 or 5 years. But I listen to it and I hear the soul in it. When I listen to Riley Green, I can hear the soul. When I listen to Chris Stapleton, I can hear the soul. It's like, this is like the music I grew up with, this country music. There's a longing for a culture that doesn't totally violate people's biblical worldview and traditional values. And Caitlin Clark and Morgan Wallen are benefiting from that. There's room for others. I'm telling any of these black athletes, if they were willing to take the tats off themselves or don't tat themselves up, take the cornrows out and all the time you spend braiding up your hair and just present yourself like a regular guy, someone that could show up on someone's front door and the parents would be like, oh man, my daughter's brought a nice guy home. There's a culture shift. There's a fatigue with this entire hip-hopization, rap music takeover. People are tired of it. That brand, it's gay, from Diddy to all of them. People have figured out what these guys have had to do to get these contracts, and people are just tired of the profanity and the degeneracy. Caitlin Clark and Morgan Wallen represent a cultural shift. I want to lean in a bit more as it relates to Morgan Wallen. For those of you that haven't been paying attention, what is the biggest hat tip you can get in the music industry at the moment? And it's been going on for nearly 2 years. Can I do the pre-concert walkout with Morgan Wallen? It's the greatest taste-making cultural event going on in music. 2 weeks ago, week ago, I can't remember, Drake and Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens, the old baseball star, and Drake, the biggest star in hip-hop. They walk out together with Morgan Wallen. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, when Morgan Wallen was in Kansas City, they came out with Morgan Wallen. Just this past week, our guy Brett Favre, this past weekend, came out with Morgan Wallen. Everybody from the king of rap music, Drake, to any current superstar athlete, the coolest thing you can do is walk out on stage before a concert with Morgan Wallen. This guy owns the music industry right now. He owns the culture. Let's say a rapper, let's say Jay-Z, or I just said Drake, but Drake, there's a song about him from Kendrick Lamar calling him a pedophile. I'm not sure if I want to do the pre-concert walkout with Drake. Kendrick Lamar took the Super Bowl halftime stage in some women's blue jeans. I'm not sure if I want to walk out with him. Jay-Z, all the cult-like activity that people say he's involved in, his connections to Diddy, I'm not sure I want to walk out with Jay-Z. Oh, Morgan Wallen, he was caught on his ring cam saying the N-word when he was drunk. No one cares. Everybody wants to be associated with Morgan Wallen. Everybody wants to be associated with country music. If you have your finger in the air and you can figure out which way the wind is blowing. There's a culture shift and a fatigue with a demonic culture that has dominated American culture for the last 20 years. The NFL needs to figure it out and disassociate itself from Jay-Z. The NBA needs to figure it out and quit pumping that demonic trash, no talent music into every arena and quit pretending like Cardi B and Sexy Red and these other idiots have some sort of talent. They're doing profane nursery school rhymes. People are tired of it. People want something far more relatable and far less demonic. And that's why Caitlin Clark and Morgan Wallen are the two biggest influences in American culture. In the sports world, she's dominating, and in the music industry, Morgan Wallen is dominating. And this lane is open. It's open to all these men. What Caitlin Clark is doing, just presenting herself like a normal person. Someone needs to tell, what's the young kid, Ace Bailey, that didn't want to go to Utah, wouldn't interview with any teams? Someone needs to tap him on the shoulder and say, hey man, the hip hop thing is dead. Did y'all see his agent? I think his name's Amar Cooper. There's a video floating around of him on Twitter, on X, sitting in his car, listening. Play that. We probably shouldn't play the music, but play that. This Omar Cooper sitting in his car. It's shot number 3. Could we play that? Yeah, sitting in his car, looking like Jay-Z or looking like some rappers, looking at himself. Ace Bailey, that era is over. It's dead. Your agent presenting himself like he's Birdman from Cash Money Records. It doesn't work. Hey, remember, Master P tried to be an agent. All these guys have tried to be an agent. It's over. Let me give you one more example in how LeBron James not having his fingers in the air. Rich Paul not having his finger in the air. LeBron is about to crash land his NBA career. His plane is about to land with a thud. Rich Paul just came out of nowhere talking about, hey, LeBron is going to take his option year, or this $52 million, his player option, but the Lakers need to be a competitive team. And basically he's threatening LeBron will seek a trade. Well, the problem is no one's interested in LeBron James at the moment. He's too old. He costs too much money. The baggage of having to carry his son. And this is Rich Paul and LeBron James just trying to force themselves into relevancy and the conversation. And it doesn't appear there's any interest or anybody that wants LeBron James. It's over. LeBron James won 4 championships. He forced his way inauthentically, in my view, into the GOAT conversation. He's about the 3rd or 4th best player all time. Had a great career. But he blew it hopping from team to team to team. His reign, his era is over. It's ended. He doesn't know. All this attention seeking he does every offseason, people are tired of it. They have fatigue. The NBA is ready for LeBron James to move on. I want to play a Brian Windhorst clip shooting down trade possibilities for LeBron James. Play shot number 4.
Now, I want to be clear. And I know that a lot of fans are probably thinking about the possibility of LeBron being traded to their team or to another contender. I don't think LeBron James will be traded. I don't think he can be traded. He has a no-trade clause, which means that he would control all sides of a trade, where he would go, what he would get traded for. It's very unlikely that that would happen, regardless of what the options would be. Trading for a $54 million player in the modern era with all the rules is difficult. If you're a contender, trading for him is next to impossible. So I don't think that's what's going on here.
Here's Windhorst saying what is obvious. This is the beginning of the crash landing for LeBron James. He's not going to call it a crash landing. It's the beginning of the end, but it's a crash landing. Play shot number 5.
I don't mean this to be controversial. It's just true. This is the beginning of the end with the Lakers for LeBron.
Yeah. I mean, when you're 40, turning 41,
yes,
that's, I think, an acceptable thing to
and
say.
Again, for the first time in his career, he is on the end of a contract, okay? So how is that end going to be? Is it going to be with some sort of really impressive playoff run alongside Luka next spring? Maybe. Is it going to be something that happens during this year? Maybe. That's what essentially I take from this statement. Now,
let me put a bow on this, and I'm going to bring Paul into the conversation. I've explained to you all that Nike is the most powerful influence in all of sports. That Nike is a $50 billion a year company, global company. The NBA is a $10, $12 billion a year company. And that the NBA actually works for Nike and the shoe companies. The NBA's job is to sell tennis shoes for Nike. Adidas as well, the New Balance, Under Armour, but primarily for Nike. Nike controls the sports world. And so the whole LeBron James project, the 23-year NBA career, it was all about him replacing or equaling Michael Jordan as a shoe salesman. That's the job of an NBA player, the real job. Sell shoes. The NBA is a nice little business. You get a nice little paycheck or a nice big paycheck from the NBA. But the real money is paid from Nike. Michael Jordan made far more money with Nike than he did in the NBA, and the same is true for LeBron James. LeBron James has failed as a shoe salesman because he built his brand around being a rapper. He mimicked the rappers. What did Michael Jordan do? Tattoo-free, never involving himself in divisive politics, dressing up suit and tie, corporate, boy next door. You bring Michael Jordan home to any black home and the parents got big smiles on their face. Oh, you brought Michael Jordan home. This is awesome. Take him to most white homes. And the parents be like, we can deal with this. You know, we can work with this. This isn't LeBron. LeBron James is nowhere in Michael Jordan's stratosphere. And guess who potentially will be as a shoe salesman? Caitlin Clark. Nike just used her. Trust me, they're going to come out with the Caitlin Clark shoes, I believe, in November. And she's going to sell a lot of Caitlin Clark shoes to a lot of little girls. But this woman is so valuable that they just said, you know what? We need you to sell these Kobe Bryant shoes too. She sold out these new Kobes in hours. LeBron can't do that. No one can do that. Show me the man that can sell tennis shoes to women and men. Nike just proved with Caitlin Clark she can sell shoes to women and men. This is unprecedented. This is a culture shift. This is a type of woman king that we have never seen. I think all of this is actually a positive. I think it's going to give people the confidence that they needed and is necessary to stand up to a toxic, degenerate culture that's needed to be pushed to the side for decades. And it's finally being pushed to the side. And so you're seeing this power shift, this cultural shift, and people are upset about it. There are people that have made millions and millions of dollars being groupies for these hip-hop athletes and for these hip-hop rappers and just selling product from liquor to apparel with degeneracy. And that's all changing. People are thirsting for some wholesomeness that Caitlin Clark represents and that Morgan Wallen, even though Morgan Wallen likes to party and drink and, you know, typical country music star, but he's far more wholesome than some rapper that's got tats all over his face, neck, and every place else, talks constantly about, I'll kill this nigga, I'll smoke this weed, I'll drink this, I'll bang this bitch, blah. Far more wholesome than any of that. Paul, you have any thoughts? I've said a mouthful here. You have any thoughts you'd like to add?
Well, I would love to start with the question of what you saw in Caitlin Clark initially that made you think that this would all happen?
That I was long before. Are you aware of the fatigue narrative that's popular over social media?
Sure.
I was fatigued a long time ago. Everybody, and I was very public about my fatigue a long time ago. And so what I saw was, hey, Caitlin Clark doesn't make me fatigued. She actually puts a smile on my face. And I was like, this is going to sell. Because I'm just more comfortable saying, like, man, this ghetto BS, I'm just not with. For white people, it took a little bit longer because they don't want to be accused of being racist. Now they don't care. And so I just knew that I was just more comfortable where I was at and more public about it, but I knew everybody else was there too. They just weren't comfortable, and now they are.
I agree with you that there's a certain optimism to Caitlin Clark,
Yes.
to country music, and I think that's where I would frame it is there's this phenomenon happening that you and I are dealing with where we grew up in kind of a monoculture. So we understood what was the biggest show on TV. In the 80s, it was Cheers. In the 90s,
I was thinking Cheers.
In the 90s, it was Friends. We could,
Cosby Show you left out.
Yeah, we talked about the same kinds of culture because it was large and there were fewer outlets. We have moved into a fracturing of culture in our lifetimes, right, in the last 10 to 15 years, because of the internet, of course. And to me, what strikes me about talking about LeBron James, I think I would connect him to maybe Taylor Swift, where it is the last vestiges of a monoculture, but that monoculture seems manufactured and a little cynical, and I think that's what we are maybe responding to. There's an inauthenticity there that just feels commercialized, commoditized, and what I would see in agreeing with you around Caitlin Clark is this sense of this is a real person, and of course she's somewhat manufactured. We can't argue that this is all organic, but to me there is this sense of this is a real person that doesn't care about the packaging or that monoculture attitude.
You use the word inauthenticity, inauthentic, and that this culture that I'm saying is dying is inauthentic. The other thing that I think people feel, though, is that culture is dangerous. And that when I look around, and again, what's popular over these social media apps, and you see a lot of videos like, man, this is dangerous. How did we get here? How did we get all these illegal immigrants? How did we get these other cultures that aren't traditional American culture? How did they get so much power? How did they get so much voting power that they could put an Ilhan Omar in office? In New York, we've got this Zohran Mamdani coming into office, and we have people that want to cater to illegal immigrants and put them up in hotels, and they've bought the narrative, whether it's true or not, that hey, these other cultures, they're more dangerous. And so that's where, if it was just inauthentic, people would kind of deal with it. But once you reach the conclusion, like, man, these other cultures that we're just letting run wild here in America, they're dangerous.
Yeah, so I will confess that I moved from Los Angeles 4 years ago to Denver. Part of the reason I left LA was because it had blown up into what felt somewhat dangerous to me, right? Just walking the streets, you didn't feel
a lot of homeless
safe,
people,
right?
Yeah.
Denver, unfortunately, has kind of taken that same path. And to me, there is a sense among what we would call normal people that this isn't working well. The problem, and this is where I've had a shortfall or something of a blind eye, internet culture has become so dominant, and I was participating in internet culture, and I think I was unaware of how people were really thinking and feeling. I just drove a couple of weeks ago from Denver to Kansas, where I'm from, then up to Iowa, then across Nebraska, and it was interesting just paying more attention to what are people actually thinking about? What do they really care about? They don't really care about Instagram, about the internet, out in the world, right? I think because the internet is so dominant in our lives as people who have been familiar with media, who've been familiar with sports, we tend to think that that's becoming all of culture. But there's been this erosion slowly, and I think you're right that Morgan Wallen has tapped into that. I think country music has done that generally. Like you, I didn't listen to country until 5 years ago. I grew up in Kansas. I hated country music because it was what everybody listened to and it seemed lame to me. In Los Angeles, kind of tired of the indie music alternative scene. I had rented a truck actually to build this co-working space in in LA. And a friend said, if you're gonna have that F-150, you should probably start listening to country again. And I swear to you, the first song I heard was Florida Georgia Line with Morgan Wallen, the song Up Down. And I was like, wait a second, this is where all the fun is being had. It made me think of Def Leppard in the late 80s, some of Guns N' Roses, this sense of, like you said, it's not that it's Pollyanna, it's not innocent. There's partying that's happening, but there's a kind of optimism to it. And I felt that in paying attention to Luke Combs or Chris Stapleton. We talked yesterday about Steven Wilson Jr., who I really like.
Amazing.
There's this, again, it's not to say that it's innocent or that they're not talking about real issues, but there is this feeling of ascension in that, where to me, LeBron James had a great career. He's obviously a great basketball player, but there's a kind of carapace feel to that of like, we're trying to squeeze as much money as we can out of this old model, where the old model is still only 20 years old, but it feels to me there is this erosion that's happening, and I think people are cottoning onto that. The question I would reflect back to you, though, is that truly a shift of the entire culture, or is it a microculture and we are moving to a system of kind of niche cultures?
We've certainly, I love your point about niche cultures, and we certainly have been there. But I do think there's starting to become a consensus that, hey man, a lot of these cultures, there's no equality in cultures. There's never been equality. There have been superior cultures. And for someone like me who doesn't believe in superior people, I believe in superior culture. And there's been something that people are starting to realize, like, man, this American culture that we took for granted, it's actually superior to these other cultures we're bringing in and we got to make room for. And so I think that people, regardless of skin color, are starting to figure out, like, yeah, we've sacrificed a lot of American culture for inclusiveness, and what have we really included? And we've included a lot of dangerous stuff, and the final example of that, where I think this is all going to come to a head, because, you know, part of what I try to do on this show, and we just try to do in the media, is I want to be ahead of the conversation. And the other thing that I've been telling people is, have you heard of the Carmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf case? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I said very early on, I was like, look, they got a video of what happened here, and they're going to release it at some point for maximum impact. And my initial thought was kind of cynical of like, man, when they release this and it's going to look so one-sided, it's going to potentially spark civil unrest. But I actually think it's going to be the final straw of people just saying, hey man, hello. We don't need black culture. We need American culture. Mm-hmm. Because I've never heard of, and I've been here 58 years, I never heard of growing up white culture. I've heard of American culture and Americana and things like that. And then we came up with this subset real hard that we've leaned into of black culture. And it's hip hop, basically. And people are starting to figure out, and this Carmelo Anthony thing, this is Carmelo with a K, is going to be the final straw. People are like, hey man, these little black dudes running around like they rappers and using disrespect. If you listen to young black people, even older black people talk, all they talk about is disrespect. You can't disrespect me, disrespect. And if you get disrespected, you must respond. And normal people, or people with a biblical worldview, you can't be disrespected by any and everybody. Paul, and I like you, but if you called me a name right now, if you called me the N-word, I wouldn't feel disrespected, because Jesus Christ defines me. I don't care what you think about me. I don't care what name you call me. There's no disrespect to you or whatever, but that because we used to have this thing in American culture: sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never harm me. There was a masculinity about men and control of their emotions, and this diss culture, this hip hop culture. So there must be a violent or super aggressive response to any sort of perceived disrespect. And I just think people have had it. They don't want to live around it. They don't want to be around it. Anybody that buys into that mentality, and people are finally having the courage to say, hey man, I don't care what color you are. You bring that black culture rap garbage to my neighborhood or to me, I'm going to object. It's all you little gay rappers and all you, look at the death rate of rappers. Who wants that? What profession has that kind of a death rate that people hold in high regard and respect? And we interview these rappers and Jay-Z and these people like they have something important to say. A bunch of wannabe drug dealers and killers that do shoot and kill each other. And I just think people have had it. And it's like Caitlin Clark is filling that void. She's not tatted up. She's got a boyfriend. She doesn't say much politically. She just plays basketball, and it's fun to watch. People like it. Morgan Wallen, I know where he hangs out in places like that, and so if I want to go see him be a mess, I can. But on stage, at concerts, and what I see in the public, I just see a guy that's having fun. And it's like you can grow out of the rambunctiousness of Morgan Wallen, but these hip hop guys, you don't grow out of it, you just die in that culture. It's baby mama, it's irresponsible, and it's dangerous. People just had it.
You mentioned this idea of if I insulted you, that you would not be.
I wouldn't care.
So now I have to insult you. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But one of the things that came to mind as you were talking about that is my understanding and impression of Caitlin Clark is that she doesn't really care what people think of her. And that what we've seen in the past 20 years is that everyone who's in the public eye worries a bunch, as you pointed out regarding the agent, who's really flashing for the camera. He's peacocking for the camera. He cares a lot about what people think of him, or he wouldn't be doing that thing. And I would agree with you that there's this sense from people that they want true authenticity, which means I don't actually care what you think of me. There is a performative I don't care what you think of me, which we have inculcated into people, right? There's that idea that I don't care, but do you really not care, which is difficult and hard to do and involves a fair amount of self-confidence that I think has been lacking from all of us. I've been a party to that too, of worrying because of the internet, because of the spotlight that shines on you about what people think, as opposed to getting back to that sense of I'm okay, what you say to me will not affect me because that's more about you than it is about me.
Paul, I want to bring Jay Skapinac in to talk a little. Jay's upset with us about the way we trashed Kobe Bryant yesterday. So I want to bring him in for that. And I want to talk a little bit about LeBron James and kind of the fall of LeBron James. I want to remind you all that this 4th of July, you can celebrate with us here at Blaze on No King's Day. The left, they got their No King's Day. Well, here at the Blaze, we have our No King's Day, and it includes a 7-day free trial at Blaze TV. It's we've never done this. 7 days free. All you have to do is sign up at fearlessmission.com. You can get a free 7-day trial, no commitment, no anything. You just get 7 days free. You get to figure out what we're about and why a full-time subscription to the Blaze makes sense for you. We're going to celebrate on the 4th of July and this week with a No King's Day 7-day free trial of Blaze TV. Go to fearlessmission.com right now, sign up, get 7 days free. You get access to anything and everything that we do here at Fearless, anything and everything we do at Blaze TV. Don't go anywhere. Jay Skapinac. Next. I don't know if there's anything you noticed there, but I do. 4 of those girls have 2 full cups of sugar, and the other girls have a half cup of sugar or a cup of sugar Collier and Sabali got white mothers, and so altogether there's 5 scoops of cane sugar in an allegedly black coffee league. The white women have invaded the WNBA and are dominating the WNBA, and I think there's a reason why. I think, honest to goodness, I think sports are being dominated by 2-parent family kids. Period. End of story. All right, welcome back to the show. Jay Skapinac joining us. Jay, yesterday we took a pretty big dump on your man Kobe Bryant. I wouldn't say a pretty big dump. Well, we tried to put him in proper perspective. Marcellus Wiley made the accurate point that, like, hey man, in 2015, no one was talking about Kobe Bryant as the GOAT. No one was even talking about him as the top 5 player all time. Somehow he dies, and the next thing you know, he's in the top 5 when he wasn't even in the top 10, according to ESPN, Fox Sports, Bleacher Report, Sports Illustrated. Jay, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to defend Kobe Bryant. Why are they remaking history as it relates to Kobe Bryant in your mind?
Well, Jason, I typically start these segments by saying it's a pleasure to be here, but I'm duty bound to be here. It's an obligation that I'm here. I have to pick up arms and lead the charge in defense of my man, Kobe Bryant. Point in fact, I'm not even at home. I'm on vacation here, Jason. I'm in a lake house in Georgia, and I'm still on here the day after the absolute slander was wafting around that studio of yours in Nashville yesterday. Look, Jason, I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here in general when we discuss the GOAT debate. So I want to set the parameters of the conversation, the discussion, first and foremost, with the pure fact that there is no such thing as a debate here, Jason. There is just one name. It's Michael Jeffrey Jordan. That's it. That's the list. That's the number of people who are in contention or vying for that moniker, the greatest player of all time. However, when we get to the number 2 slot on that list, when you look at every other player that has come after Michael Jordan, there is anywhere between, in my estimation, 6 to 8 players vying for that to be the first name mentioned after Michael Jordan. And in my opinion, Jason, as a sports historian, as someone who has studied intricately the history, the vast history of the NBA, Kobe Bryant has as good of a case to be the next name listed after Michael Jordan than any player that has ever existed. And the fact that you're saying, look, you were there all along with the dislike of Kobe. So I'm not saying that you're being inconsistent. But the fact that you're suggesting that there wasn't a large sect of people predating his death that were saying that Kobe Bryant was in, the Mount Rushmore discussion is a little bit disingenuous. Go ask your man Michael Wilbon where he has Kobe Bryant. Ask Mark Jackson where he has Kobe. Mark Jackson was on air in an NBA Finals series that he was broadcasting in like 2010, saying that Kobe Bryant is the closest. He's right there with Michael Jordan, arguably better than Michael Jordan. That's the wording of Mark Jackson back in like 2009 and 2010. A large percentage of players within the NBA that were played in his requisite kind of comp era, the guys that bridged the Michael Jordan era, got into the Kobe era, will have you know that it's Kobe right beneath Jordan. Anyone that played against these guys. So to say that it never happened or nobody ever thought that Kobe Bryant was in these kind of discussions prior to his death, Jason, this is just pure revisionary history right now.
Skap, how do you get around the list we showed from ESPN, from Sports Illustrated to Bleacher Report to, I can't remember who the fourth one was. How do you get around those? How do you get around those lists? 2015, no Kobe in the top 10. Now he's in virtually everybody's top 5.
Let's do this, Jason. I'm not going to live, breathe, and die on a hill of arbitrary lists set forth by some unknown amount of journalists. Let's just take a look. Jason, if you will, please allow me, give me a little bit of leash here. Look, people talk about the Kobe before, the after the injury, before he started. If you look at when he became a starter in 1998, so in his age 20 season, and running to when he ruptured his Achilles in the 2012 season, so his 17th year in the NBA, that would be his age 34 season. From the age of 20 to 34, in his healthy prime, which 14 years is a pretty large prime, Jason. In that 14-year snapshot, he played more games than Larry Bird for his career, more games than Will Chamberlain or Magic Johnson in their careers, the same amount of games as Michael Jordan. So that 14-year sample size is no small sample, Jason. In that span of time, he led the NBA in scoring, both in points per game and in total points scored. He is one of only 3 players in league history to lead an entire decade in scoring while leading in average, the points and the average, I should say. He's undeniably one of the 3 greatest offensive forces in NBA history. He still is top 3 all-time in 40, 50, 60-point games. If you just look at him from an individual standpoint, his individual offensive excellence is top 3 in the history of the NBA. He also, Jason, he has the most first-team defensive selections in league history. 9, tied with Michael Jordan, Gary Payton, and Kevin Garnett. So when you look at Kobe Bryant, the totality of him as an individual, he is one of the 2 to 4 greatest full-court, most complete, dominating full-court players that have ever existed. Okay, and then in that 14-year span realized that he went to 7 NBA championship series and won 5 of them. So he has a very high level of team success. So really, I'm looking at him as a complete and total snapshot as a player. There is simply no way you can get around his total resume. You cannot find me a better list of 4 to 5 players, I would argue 3, that surpass Kobe Bryant from an individual standpoint while winning the way he did. Oh, and can I also just sprinkle in real quickly here? He played the hardest competition of any player in NBA history. He faced more 50-plus win opponents in his playoff career than anybody ever. He beat more 50-plus win playoff opponents in his career than anybody ever. So when you factor the totality of it in, Jason, I'm the one that's struggling here. Please help me. Help me understand how there are 10 to 12 to 14 players that existed that are better than this guy.
Tim Duncan has 5 NBA titles and 2 MVPs.
Duncan's in my Mount Rushmore.
Walk me how Kobe surpasses Tim Duncan.
First of all, I have Kobe, Duncan, Kareem, and Jordan are my Mount Rushmore. So Duncan is in my Mount Rushmore. It is, look, it's pick your poison between Tim Duncan and Kobe Bryant. In my estimation, Kobe Bryant was a substantially more dominant offensive player than Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was a better defensive player than Kobe Bryant, but let's not act like Kobe Bryant was a slouch defensively. As I said, 9 first-team defensive selections, tied for most ever, 12 selections overall. Jason, he finished top 10 in Defensive Player of the Year like 7 or 8 times. The differential between
Magic Johnson's got 5 MVPs, or 5 titles, and
the differential between Tim Duncan and Kobe Bryant is more vast offensively in Kobe's favor than it is defensively in Tim Duncan's favor. They both won the same number of championships, Jason. Kobe beat him more times head-to-head in the playoffs. Tim Duncan had a much better
Magic won 5 titles and 3 MVPs. Magic won 5 titles and 3 MVPs. Get me over that hurdle.
Jason, we've gone through the MVP discussion, but I'll just summarize. I've gone through it with you, but let me go through it one more time. Kobe Bryant has the 3rd most top 5 league year-end MVP finishes in NBA history. Behind only LeBron has, I believe, 14. Kareem has 15. Kobe Bryant had 11. Jordan only had 10. Wilt only had 10. Russell only had 10. Everybody on that list, Jason, there are 6 guys that have finished in double digits with year-end MVP vote. Every person on that list, 5 of the 6 won a minimum of 4 league MVPs. Kobe Bryant won only 1 because of the vast and imperceptible hatred by the people at the time who were voting on the award. And look no further than 2005-2006. He put forth arguably the greatest offensive season in league history. If you adjust it for pace and scoring, it's the highest scoring season ever, Jason. He played in 80 games that year while making first-team All-NBA defense. He dragged the team into the playoffs with a starting lineup of Smush Parker, Kwame Brown, Luke Walton was a starter on that team, and Chris Mim. You had literally Lamar Odom was the only other serviceable player on that team. He's known best for being a 6th man. That was the 2nd best player on that team. Kobe drags that team into the 7th seed, and for all of his troubles that season, he didn't just finish 2nd to Steve Nash. He didn't just finish 3rd. He finished 4th, a distant 4th, like just slightly above Chauncey Billups that year. They had Steve Nash above him. I think Dirk Nowitzki finished above him. LeBron James finished above him that year. That looked no further than 2005-2006 for how badly the voting populace hated and despised Kobe Bryant, hated his guts. That's why he only had 1 league MVP, Jason.
Can I jump in?
Please.
Okay. If we were talking
do.
about golf or tennis, I think these arguments would hold some water regarding who's the best individual player. It's basically impossible to settle who's better at basketball without taking into account the team, right? So in my time watching many really great players, is Kobe Bryant that much better than Tracy McGrady? Not really. Just from a true like basketball fundamentals, is he really any better than Kevin Garnett? Probably not in a lot of ways. To my mind, you brought up earlier the fact that Caitlin Clark has had to put the entire league on her back and has changed the trajectory of professional basketball. So to my way of thinking, the only way to really talk about this is the cultural impact that players had. So that goes way back to what did Bob Cousy do for basketball? What did Wilt Chamberlain do for basketball? What did Bill Russell do for basketball? What did Oscar Robertson do for basketball? So these are little ticks along the way. As a kid who kind of grew up steeped in the history of Kansas basketball and basketball in general, to me, what's more important is what does the league do? And by the league, I mean all the vestiges of the ABA, the NBA. What did Julius Erving do for basketball, right? He changed people's perspective. As we talked about a little bit yesterday, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird changed the way people viewed basketball. The college basketball championship was not on TV until they played in it, right? I think why we talk about Michael Jordan the way we talk about him is because of the delta from where it was before he got a hold of it and where it was afterward, right? So in that sense, to me, it's about, again, Shaquille O'Neal changing the way people thought about basketball because he was so big and so nimble. Steve Nash changed the way basketball worked. In a lot of ways, the basketball that we see now is because of what Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni did in the early 2000s. So to me, this argument is impossible to settle in terms of who was the better fundamental or on his own basketball player, but where you can dig in is what was the change in the trajectory of the game because that person came along. And to my mind, somebody like Oscar Robertson, right, who averaged a triple-double, took basketball from here to here, and then there were these other people who took the torch and passed it culturally along the way, and that's a much more interesting argument because it also factors in this historical reality that basketball hasn't been such a big deal for most of human history, right? So what's interesting to me about it is how people have moved it forward, which comes back to that idea that Michael Jordan has such an outside influence because of the way that he took basketball from this thing that wasn't really even nationally televised in the NBA sense to something that was ever present, and he became probably the most famous person in the world.
So let's do this.
I love that argument, and that's certainly part of my argument. We gotta I love that. That's part of my argument. And Skap, I take it it's no part of your argument because the reason I love that argument is because LeBron James has changed basketball for the worst, and that's why again I think arguing him versus Jordan is kind of silly and a joke. But Skap, I'll let you respond.
Yeah, let's do this then, guys. Let's just make the conversation be about cultural impact or, societal impact or, what kind of leaders they were. But let's look, because you guys talked about Kobe's character and him as a leader as well yesterday. I listened to your entire segment. So let's make the conversation about that. But we're essentially arguing semantics here. If we're talking about who is the best basketball player that has ever lived, who was the best, who presented the best tangible on-court product that has ever existed?
Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson, it could be argued that Allen Iverson is the best basketball player who ever lived because of what he was able to do with so little, his impact individually on the game. But that's not how basketball works, right? Basketball works in a different way than just can one guy get past one guy. We like to think that it's about just that singular ability. I had to at some point guard Vladimir Radmanovic, right? That guy was effectively unstoppable because he didn't care, right? He would shoot from anywhere. So that made him a great individual basketball player, but he didn't fit within the framework of the team. So this, to me, is such a strange argument because it takes 5 players, and it's about who's able to energize the people around him, who's able to capture people's imagination. I will admit that, of course, because Kobe Bryant died, he has had a change in the perception of him. But from my perspective, as somebody who was in this world for so long, it becomes a little bit diminishing to just focus on one player's ability and think about how they would work in a one-on-one game against everybody in history.
Okay, let's apply it to what he did for his teams, though, and his level of team success. When you look at the fact that he won 5 NBA championships, he never had more than 1 All-Star on any of those 5 teams. If you want to say that Shaquille O'Neal was as dominant or more dominant than any other all-time great players, second their running mate or their co-teammate or whatever dynamic you want to suggest existed between Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. I would present this though. Look at every other top 10 to 15 all-time player that exists on any list that you guys want to build up here. No one won more challenging championships than Kobe Bryant either, though. He won 2 championships in a row and went to 3 consecutively against a field of playoff contenders that won 50-plus games each in a 3-year span with no top 75 players on his team as teammates. Like Magic Johnson had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the league MVP the year Magic won his first title. Then in his back 3 titles for Magic Johnson, he still had Kareem, and he had a top 50 player as James Worthy as his 3rd option. They even had guys Bob McAdoo on one of those championship teams. Bob McAdoo as like a 4th or 5th option at the time he was like 30 or 31 years old. He's a league MVP. He's a top 75 player as his 4th option on one of those title teams. Larry Bird.
Skap, hold on for a second. Did you just argue that Bob McAdoo has the same number of MVPs as Kobe? Is that what you just said? Did you say Bob McAdoo has the same number of MVPs as Kobe?
That's right, Jason. So tell me, tell me, who won multiple championships consecutively without a single top 75 player? Larry Bird had 2 top 50 players to win his. I could do this all day because everyone
but this is
had
like
substantially better help than Kobe Bryant had, and Bryant was playing harder competition. So I'm applying his individual dominance to the way he impacted his teams and the way he won. When you factor it all in, there's no way. Get out of here with barely top 10. It is absolute outrageous blasphemy to sit here and say 11th, 12th. He's 4th all time in scoring. In the regular season, postseason, he's been to 7 titles and won 5 of them. Just stop this nonsense.
So I sort of hate this argument, and I get drawn into it sometimes, but nonetheless, we're going to have it. I think what's important as adults is to remember that if you say, well, this guy didn't have great players on his team, you could make the case that that was an exterior variable. But could it also not be that it's an interior variable, and that person didn't make great players on his team? Again, basketball cannot be separated into I have to play you, Jason, one-on-one and go around you. There's this whole thing happening around. So would Kevin McHale have been as great without Larry Bird? Did Larry Bird probably not teach him how to be great along the way? Did Magic Johnson turn James Worthy into a great basketball player? Probably. I was on a Phoenix Suns team that was really, really good. Steve Nash made Amari Stoudemire a much, much better basketball player. The same was true for Sean Marion. The same was true for Joe Johnson, who went on to make a ton of money but never really dominated a team exactly. However, on that team, those three guys got so much better because of Steve Nash. So I think we talked yesterday about this book I love, Good to Great, about leadership, about team culture. This is where I have to pull rank a little bit just in terms of seeing this from the inside. There are ways that great players make other great players because basketball is so intertwined. It's not quite like baseball where you just sign up and your job is hit the baseball and then it's isolated from all of the other stuff that happens on the field. In basketball and in the locker room, it's all tied together. And what I saw was that a guy like Kobe Bryant, who most players didn't really like, couldn't energize people around him. But the great players, the Kevin Garnetts of the world, who I would defend to the death as far as his ability to lead people, to connect people, he made everyone around him better. Is Ray Allen really that great of a basketball player? Maybe, great shooter, right? But he got so good because he was on a team with Kevin Garnett, which makes this conversation to me interesting around leadership, around team, around how companies get built. That's the reality of basketball, is that it's so nuanced and interesting, and that's what always fascinated me about playing it. Was it's not as simple as, if you watch me play one-on-one in Minnesota Timberwolves training camp, you'd think that guy will never play in the NBA, right? But I could figure out ways around that in terms of the little things that went into that. And I think that was true of the really great ones too, that they were able to match a high level of talent with a high level of emotional intelligence and then build something that was different. That's what made Magic Johnson great. That's what made Larry Bird great. That's what made Michael Jordan great. And that to me is a much more adult and interesting argument.
And
Paul, riddle me
obviously,
this.
Skap, I got a bias against Kobe.
Paul,
Go
riddle
ahead,
me
go
this,
ahead.
if you will, though. Pau Gasol played 7 NBA seasons in Memphis before coming over to play with the LA Lakers. He made 1 All-Star appearance in seven seasons. He made no All-NBA selections. He won 0 playoff games in his entire career for the first 7 years of his career. When you look at, Pau Gasol played 17, 18 years in the NBA. When you look at the career of time that happened after he left LA, he made 1 All-Star team only. Why was it in like that little snapshot of time, like 4 years when he was playing with Kobe Bryant in LA, why was it that he was making All-Star teams every year, he was being All-NBA designated, and now he's in the Hall of Fame? Could it be maybe because Kobe Bryant uplifted him and made him better and found a way to take that one fringe All-Star to 3 consecutive NBA Finals series, win back-to-back against a gauntlet of opponents? Look at the Western Conference that Kobe Bryant was going through at that span of time. And when he got out of it...
Did we lose, Skap?
I'm here.
Great point. Go ahead.
So I will piggyback and say that I don't think anybody is arguing that Kobe Bryant is bad at basketball. I once got into some weird internet trouble because I wrote a piece when I was writing for ESPN about music calling the Beatles overrated. To my mind, because they're the most highly rated band of all time, it would be hard for them to not be overrated. So I think our argument is more around the outsized cultural impression of Kobe Bryant. So I would never say, I, Paul Shirley, am better at basketball than Kobe Bryant. That would be insane. Nor am I saying that Kobe Bryant doesn't belong in a he was great at basketball conversation. It's just that I think we live in a time that is so biased toward recency. We think in terms of what was the latest thing that flashed across my news feed. And it's interesting to me to look back at some of these people who came before and talk about like what was their actual impact, which we can never really know. We weren't around for Oscar Robertson. But to me, averaging a triple-double and dealing with the hardship of playing basketball in the 1950s is such a more interesting story than Kobe Bryant, who was kind of basically a facsimile of Michael Jordan, but without the personality.
I think both of you have made great points. I land on Kobe's a tiny bit overrated. He's not a top 5 all-time great player, which is no insult to him. There's been great NBA players. His death has elevated him. Where I really love Paul's point, and Skap, we're not going to get to LeBron James. I'm sorry we run out of time. But a guy that I think is criminally underrated, and totally misunderstood, Isaiah Thomas. And you want to talk about someone elevating everybody around them and winning championships when Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and Michael Jordan are all in the league, and he just won 2, never won an MVP. But when you want to talk about someone elevating a team, giving a team a personality and molding them into a championship team, obviously Isaiah's a friend of mine, so I have a bias, but I'm just speaking facts here. Skap, I appreciate you taking a break from your vacation. Tell your wife I said hello, and I won't bother you anymore on vacation because we're going on vacation as well. We're going to move on from here. We're going to get to Steve Kim, the Korean Cosell. Next. They haven't put a dream team around Caitlin Clark. They've put a scheme team around Caitlin Clark. They've surrounded her with her natural enemies. Lesbian women who are upset that heterosexuals are invading the WNBA experience. The WNBA has been, and I'm not saying this derisively, I'm not trying to be, I don't want to agitate needlessly. I'm not trying to hurt people's feelings. I'm just speaking an uncomfortable truth that no one else or the rest of the media is not legalized to talk about. But the WNBA has been perfectly comfortable living off of the NBA and men and that welfare and having a little gay pride tour that circles the country and goes to 10, 12 different arenas, and they throw little gay pride basketball events. It's a gay Gus Macker tournament.
모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 Isn't that I'm back just to feed you raps I see that you up here below
All right, welcome back. Steve, I'm going to throw you a curveball that I know you're ready for because we didn't get to talk with Skap about it. But LeBron James might be on the trading block, but no one's interested of him on the trading block. What did you think about what Rich Paul had to say, and then what Brian Windhorst said about, like, man, there's nowhere that LeBron really fits, and no one's going to put a package together for a guy that's going to play a year or two. Your thoughts on, is LeBron James about to crash his landing, or is he going to land this thing smoothly?
Well, this is like being held hostage, and then they say, hey, you might be free. Nobody wants you. I mean, let's go all the way back. Remember the Iranian hostage situation? Remember that? And then in 1981, as Jimmy Carter's leaving office, they say, all right, you guys are free. That'd be like America saying, we're good without you. We're okay. We got Nightline out of this. This is, right now, this is purgatory for all of us Laker fans in recess. And Jason, and then Paul, hello to you. I am finding out I am not in the minority. The more and more we go into this LeBron era, I'm seeing more and more people on Twitter and social media, and I know that's a small sample size, but they're expressing to me, we're just like you. Until that guy from Akron leaves our organization, we are out on the Lakers. So as of right now, there's hope because of what you stated, but there's also despair over the reality that the rest of the league may not want that whole situation.
All right, well, the Pittsburgh Steelers are not in purgatory. They're making big moves. They traded Minkah Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey and what's the guy's name? Jonnu Smith, this tight end.
Smith, tight end.
For Aaron Rodgers. Minkah Fitzpatrick for I thought Jalen Ramsey has moved past his expiration date, and Minkah Fitzpatrick still had some gas in the tank. What do you think of this move, Steve?
Look, there's no doubt about it. Like Phil Ivey, Pittsburgh, they're going chips all the way to the center of the table. They're all in. There's no bluffing going on. This is the hand that they've been dealt, and they're going to roll with it. The way you use Jalen Ramsey, it's been a while since he's been a pure cover corner. He plays this hybrid position where he's a little bit of safety, nickel corner, dime back. He blitzes. He plays all over the place. And Pittsburgh's got a pretty good situation at cornerback with Joey Porter's son. They picked up Darius Slay, old veteran, who's still very reliable. The way they utilize him will be very interesting. I think in certain spots he's still pretty good, although, again, you're right, he's not at the apex. But you look at Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's been around the block too, though. You know, you can make an argument that he's either at the twilight of his peak or his prime or on the very beginning stages of his descent. And Jonnu Smith was productive, although, Jason, I don't recall that many tight ends being all that productive with Aaron Rodgers, but he does provide another weapon. But, Jason, it's clear they are telling Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers, we're going all in here.
Okay, there's two different messages, though. They're certainly telling Aaron Rodgers we're going all in. I think they might also be telling Mike Tomlin, hey, man, you got no excuses here.
Right.
We need a playoff victory or two, or you're done here.
That's part of all in. We are either going to hit, we're going to win this season, we're going to have a successful one, and by success, Jason, I don't think that means necessarily lifting up the Lombardi Trophy or even getting to the Super Bowl. That means double-digit wins. That means not backdooring your way into the playoffs, and that means winning at least one playoff game. To me, at that point, that re-solidifies Mike Tomlin's run as the head of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Does he get fired if they don't win a playoff game?
My view is they're going to make a graceful exit. It'll be that time, and you've seen this, Jason. Mike Tomlin will suddenly want to spend more time with his family. It's time. I haven't seen him in about 25 years, barely see the wife. But you know what? It's now time to spend more time with the wife and kids.
No, wouldn't it just be, you think he would leave football for a year? Wouldn't he just take the next head coaching job? He'd be a hot commodity on the free agent market.
Look, some of these guys get burnt out. You never know. I mean, I don't really know Mike Tomlin all that well. Look, I always thought Bill Cowher would come back. I just thought he was such a football guy. He loved it. Never returned. In fact, Jason, there haven't been that many serious rumors of him ever coming back. He's kind of gone into his media career, had some issues with his wife who passed away, had a lot of stuff to deal with, and he's moved on to the next chapter of his life. Again, I don't think Mike Tomlin has ever made it clear if he's a football lifer. And by all accounts, he's been a coach since, 2007 or 8? Most coaches do not last this long in one place. He's worked consecutive years for a very long time because I believe he was with the Buccaneers before that. 1 year away from football would not diminish his ability to be rehired down the line.
Well, there's and I don't know who Fox Sports has replaced Jimmy Johnson with, but do you think there's a broadcasting career perhaps for Mike Tomlin post-football?
Are there any spots
if
left?
he
It feels
wants
like
it.
those shows now have 30 guys.
Hold for 1 second, Paul.
Oh, my bad.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I've said this again. Those sets look like the Last Supper. I think Paul was getting to that. But he gives great sound bites. He still looks very young for his age. I don't know if he looks like Omar Epps anymore, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's out there. When you have a Super Bowl ring and you're a coach of an iconic franchise, I think those opportunities are always out there.
Go ahead, Paul.
That's what I was going to ask. Aren't people sort of exhausted by the panel discussion at halftime?
I've been exhausted pre-game, halftime, post-game. Mm-hmm. Everybody's exhausted. They need to tighten those desks up, and Fox has one of the biggest. But I think Mike Tomlin would have some value. He's a soundbite guy. Commands respect, gives you some diversity, and these TV networks are still into that. I think and Not that he would get what Brady's getting, but he'd get a pretty big contract to go sit on someone's studio show. And look, you got Amazon, you got isn't Netflix now involved? There's a lot of broadcasting jobs out there. I think he could, do exactly what Bill Cowher's done. Go collect a big check for doing nothing but, talking football and fake laughing when someone cracks a bad joke. Why not take that job?
Can I pose a question for both of you?
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve. No, go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry.
Well, so you talked about Aaron Rodgers. Do people actually dislike Aaron Rodgers, or is that mostly that people online dislike Aaron Rodgers?
No, I think people dislike Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers doesn't get along with his own family. Danica Paxton's taking shots at him. He's, a bit of a curmudgeon, and, he didn't take the vax. That makes people jealous. And he's kind of a know-it-all. Yeah, people don't like Aaron Rodgers, but there's a lot of people like me that do.
I believe that he's a perplexing, enigmatic character, but most of the people, not all, but most of the people, in my view, that do not like Aaron Rodgers lean politically to the left, and because of issues like the vaccine and the fact that he has no problems going on with Pat McAfee. So I'm actually a Rodgers fan. I don't agree with everything he's done recently. He's one of the great natural arm talents I've ever seen. But given the fact I don't lean left, I actually find myself admiring a lot of the stances that he takes. But I think a lot of this, again, is political.
Steve, first of all, great pull on the jacket today. Want to mention that. Well done by you.
I don't know if you know the significance of that, but that's a Monday Night Football jacket. We call it Korean Cosell. That's a Howard Cosell look. It's not a Hall of Fame jacket. He's not in the Hall of Fame yet.
So this actually ties back to our discussion earlier around authenticity. Do people actually like idiosyncratic athletes, or do they want them to toe the party line?
Paul, they do as long as they agree and align with your beliefs. That's the reality. We love outspoken people when they agree with us. How many times have you heard this, Paul? Man, I didn't agree with a single thing he said, but I like him. No. People want an endorsement, whether it's taciturn or not. And I don't think enough people have the mental capacity or the intelligence to say, you know what? This guy literally says nothing I agree with, but he entertains me. I think that's the highest form of intelligence you can have, because that actually means you want a conversation. You want to actually have debate. But to your point, yeah, as long as you disagree with me, I hate you. That's the prevailing thought in this country.
Steve, we'll wrap it up on this note. What did you think about my, if you caught my mono at the beginning, as it relates to Caitlin Clark and people kind of longing for, let's move past all this rap crap, and she's kind of tapped into girl next door, and there's an opportunity for a boy next door, whether it be Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey or Con Knipple or someone in the sports world that is not trying to pretend to be a rapper, but is trying to pretend to be an athlete.
So in other words, we're trying to get back to Tiffany or Debbie Gibson. You know what? I'm all for it. I actually agree with the general premise of what you said, but I'm going to tell you this again. And I get it. She's not built like a male. She's not built like Jordan, but she needs to toughen up because she has a lot on her shoulders. Guys, last night I was flipping through the cable guide, and I happened to run into one of my favorite 30 for 30s on the Bad Boys. Okay, about the 80s Pistons, those band of lovable rogues, right? What they did to Jordan would get them arrested today. And what was the last line of the Jordan rules? He goes up in the air, we knock his ass down. And you know what? He didn't shrink from it. He got tougher from it. He got callous from it. He became meaner for it. Caitlin needs to understand this is what you have to do. You cannot allow yourself to be bullied. You have to go out there and be a little bit different in terms of mentality than what you have shown, because she's kind of backing down a little bit, Jason. That is the reality. You could say that she's going through a lot. I get it. But if she's the athlete you think she is and the what you want her to be, she has to evolve.
Can you hold a woman, Caitlin Clark, to Michael Jordan, a man's standard of toughness? I think that's an unfair standard.
Well, that's where women's basketball is in trouble, right? So that's why it has a ceiling, because there are only so many ways to be effective on the court, I think, in women's basketball. It's much more a fluid game. It's going to be always about trying to shoot three-pointers. If you're bashing into each other, people don't really want to watch that. It's like, that's just maybe the reality of women's sports in general. So it seems that that will probably work pretty well if they break her arm. Like, that won't make her want to play basketball next year.
Yeah, I just think I like Paul's point in terms of, hey, you want her to have Michael Jordan's toughness, but you're willing to accept she'll never dunk the basketball like Michael Jordan. She'll never play the way Michael Jordan did. So why are we holding her to his toughness standard? I think that's an impossibility. She is a woman, and I don't say that to diminish her or to diminish women, but they're just not going to be as tough as a Michael Jordan.
I don't disagree with that, but she has to be tougher. And in terms of style of play, I talked to an ex-NBA player who's probably the second biggest Caitlin Clark fan, and Michael Thompson, better known as the father of Clay, to me, the McHale stopper. And he watches almost as much WNBA as you do, Jason. And he's still a little upset about Caitlin Clark and how she's kind of behaved on other things. But he tells me, from a stylistic point of view, purely basketball, she needs to work on two things: the mid-range game and a floater. Because when that deep shot from the three-point land does not fall, and there are going to be nights where it does not, she has to be able to find other ways to score. So keep that in mind. There still has to be an evolution in her game. And again, asking her to be as tough as Jordan, I get it. She'll never be that. But she has to be a tougher version of herself.
And on that note, we're going to end today's show. No Harmony today. We'll play tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all those moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be. I wanna be. I wanna be.